Good morning, Scott here, known as Cantaloupe to some online, and I'm bringing a video to you on a subject that's interesting to me. It might be of interest to you or someone you know, and that is the dangers of a broken heart. Speaking from personal experience largely, and some knowledge into trauma and what goes into it, what happens as a result of it, and some things that may not be obvious. Hopefully that's the takeaway here, is some new insight that isn't commonly understood. So what do I mean by that? I mean, well, there's an attitude that people must experience heartbreak, and that may be true on some level. It may be true that part of growing up, experiencing relationships with people involves heartbreak at some point. For most people, it's true for most people anyway. But what's not really well understood or appreciated is that outside influences are significant, and we pretty much always have some kind of outside influences, whether we're dealing with other people or not. There's variables, there's the environment, and especially in romance, there are adversarial elements such as economic concerns, financial concerns. There's competition sometimes. There's just the normal stresses and tribulations of being human every day is difficult just to be a person. And then to throw on top of that the stress and difficulties of navigating romance and another person in a serious way, well, sometimes it's too much, especially at first, especially when people are just learning. It's kind of doomed the first couple of times, if you ask me, unless there's some kind of cultural framework, and I'm not going to dive into that. But turns out there's a lot of success with arranged marriages. Not that I would recommend that. I don't really agree with the idea, but they do have a higher success rate. I'll give you that. But as far as outside influence goes, it can result in a type of craziness. And I hesitate to use that word, but it's for lack of a better word. When a person does their best in a relationship, when they're being honest and loving and hardworking and all the stuff that we all just know automatically should go into a relationship, if you do all that and it still falls apart, which happens quite frequently, it can make you crazy. You can analyze it and then reanalyze it and try to figure out where you went wrong and why doesn't this person still love me? I know they loved me at one point, that kind of thing. And it's sad because sometimes the answer is that it was something outside the relationship that did it, but you don't always see what that was. You don't always know exactly what factors contributed to a breakup, and that's the part that can make you crazy, not knowing what it was, especially when you really tried and when you were committed 100%, which we usually are. We're born trusting, aren't we? We're born naive and trusting out of necessity. And I think that most people they're just naturally compassionate and loving until they get burned, so to speak, and burned again and again sometimes, unfortunately, and then they become much less trusting, and that's not a good thing. I like to think about relationships, especially serious ones, marriages, or long-term, just normal relationships, as being kind of like branches of a tree that grow together, or two trees, right? Some kind of symbiosis or intertwining of branches, where when one tree is violently pulled apart from the other, it causes a great deal of damage, that kind of thing. And this can happen. There's a lot of expressions for aspects of romance, like different types of people. There's people who wear their hearts on their sleeve. There's people who they have a slow pulse is one of them. A slow pulse is, I think that means usually that a person takes time to warm up to other people. And you can, describe people who have been hurt in the past as perhaps having a slow pulse, being slow to trust, needing some kind of evidence of permanency, an expectation of permanency, as they say. And these people especially are vulnerable to the damage of impulsivity. When a relationship is violently pulled apart by whatever forces, whether it's internal or external. These people, especially the slow pulse people who took a long time to grow their branches around the other person, those branches are thick. The roots run deep. It's a level of loyalty and trust that really can't be replaced. And I think it's fair to say that when these types of relationships break apart, there's almost always devastating fallout, psychological fallout on the part of one or the other person. And you'll find that many people just kind of go off the deep end, and you'll see some really erratic behavior. It's a cause of a broken heart. And I don't fully understand how the heart is connected to sanity, but it definitely is. You'll find the craziest people had a broken heart at some point, a severely broken heart. Most of the time, that's what it was. So anyway, to end on a positive note, I believe that it's possible to learn how to be with people happily and in a healthy way, in a long-term way. I do believe that's possible. There's an arrangement. There's a way to organize our culture and individual people and couples and relationships so that they are able to stay together. I think it's possible. I got to think that it's possible. There can't just be misery, but there is a great deal of misery for sure. Anyway, I hope everybody out there has a great day. It is almost July, and I am going to sign off. Reach out with questions or comments to whitehotrobot@gmail.com. Thank you.